Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer on the cast iron plant. Whether you call it by its fancy scientific name, Aspidistra elatior, or its old school nicknames like the barroom plant or parlor palm, this is a houseplant that truly, literally lives up to its indestructible reputation. Today we're going to walk through a complete care guide for this incredibly elegant, timeless, and frankly, nearly unkillable plant. Seriously, if you've got a spot in your home where absolutely nothing else seems to survive, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
So where did this tough-as-nails reputation actually come from? Well, originally, it's native to the forest floors of Japan and Taiwan, meaning it naturally had to adapt to deep, heavy shade, but it really proved itself back in the 1800s. Picture this, the Victorian era. People had these incredibly dark, drafty parlors that were heated with coal and lit by gas lamps. The indoor air quality was terrible, yet the cast iron plant just sat in the corner and thrived. And because it survived those harsh conditions so effortlessly, it's now the absolute perfect modern floor plant for your deepest, darkest corners today. Plant expert Marina Remeslo really hit the nail on the head when she called this the definition of a set-it-and-forget-it plant. It asks for so little but gives you this lush, classic, deep green foliage, completely without the stress that comes with fussier tropical plants. Plus, and this is absolutely crucial for a lot of us, it is 100% non-toxic, totally pet safe. It's the ultimate champion for busy people, pet owners, or just anyone with a really dim living space. Okay, let's dive into this complete care guide. Here's a quick roadmap for our explainer today. We'll start with the bare essentials, light and water, then we'll look at setting up the perfect soil and environment. After that, long-term maintenance and propagation, and finally, we'll troubleshoot the very few pests and problems you might actually run into. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the essentials. Light and water needs. Now, you might be wondering about light. Interestingly, this plant actually wants to be in the dark. Its absolute ideal conditions are north-facing windows, dim corners, or even windowless hallways that only get ambient interior light. It's kind of like a superpower. On the flip side, direct sunlight is basically its kryptonite. Because it's adapted to that dark forest floor we talked about, harsh sunbeams will literally scorch its leaves, making them turn brown, fade, and look severely burnt. It loves the dark, so just let it stay there. When it comes to water, I cannot stress this enough. Less is definitely more. This plant is incredibly drought tolerant. During the spring and summer growing season, you really only need to water it every 2 to 3 weeks, and only when the soil feels completely dry several inches down. And during its dormant season in fall and winter, you can pull back even more. We're talking maybe once a month or even less. The golden rule here is, when in doubt, just wait another week. It would much rather be bone dry than damp. So what does this all mean? It means your biggest enemy is root rot. Because this plant handles neglect so beautifully, overwatering is truly the single biggest mistake you can make. It is literally the #1 killer of the cast iron plant. If you start noticing widespread yellowing on the leaves, especially starting at the tips, or if the base gets soft and mushy, those are massive red flags that the roots are sitting in water and rotting. Let that soil dry out. Moving right along to section 2, soil and environment setup, or how to create the perfect base. You know how we just talked about root rot? Well, the right soil mix is basically your insurance policy against it. It's not a fussy plant, but it absolutely hates having wet feet. You want a well-draining DIY mix, which is super easy. Just 3-part standard all-purpose potting soil mixed with 1 part perlite or coarse sand. That's it. The potting soil gives it the organic nutrients it needs, while the perlite makes sure any excess water drains away instantly, keeping the roots nicely aerated. Once you've got the soil sorted, here's your definitive cheat sheet for its environment. Look at how incredibly adaptable this thing is. Its ideal temp is between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's totally fine with cool drafts and can tolerate temperatures all the way down to 45 degrees. Humidity? Standard indoor dry air is perfect. No humidifiers, absolutely no misting required. And fertilizer? It's a very light feeder. Just give it a diluted liquid houseplant fertilizer maybe once or twice during the entire spring and summer. That's the whole shebang. All right, section 3, maintenance and propagation. Let's talk about long-term care. 50. I absolutely love this number. You are looking at a potential lifespan of 50 years for a cast iron plant. Because it grows so slowly, we're talking maybe a handful of new leaves a year, it conserves its energy brilliantly. When you bring one of these home, you aren't just getting a piece of decor. You're getting a steadfast, lifelong companion that will literally grow alongside you for decades. And thanks to that super slow growth, here's another great number for you: 4 to 5. That is how many years you can wait between repotting. Seriously, the cast iron plant actually prefers to be snug and tightly root-bound in its container. A crowded pot is a happy pot here, so you really only need to tackle repotting every half-decade, or, when you actually see the pot starting to crack under the pressure. When that rare springtime repotting day finally rolls around, the process is super straightforward. You just want to pick a new pot that is only 1 or 2 inches wider than the old one. Gently ease out that dense root system and then pot it right back up at the exact same depth it was before, using that fresh, well-draining soil mix we made. Give it a really good watering, let it drain completely, and boom, you're set for another 5 years. By the way, repotting is pretty much your only opportunity to propagate this plant. The cast iron plant grows from this thick, underground stem called a rhizome. To make new plants, you just take a clean, sharp knife and divide that rhizome into sections. The trick here is to make sure every new section you cut has at least 2 to 3 leaves and a solid chunk of roots attached. Then just repot each division into its own container. Easy! Now, I have to share this wild little secret. If your mature plant is incredibly happy, you might be treated to a really unusual sight: indoor blooming. Unlike most plants that shoot up long flower stalks, this one produces fleshy, star-shaped, creamy purple flowers directly at the soil level. They're often hidden right under the leaves. In the wild, they're actually pollinated by ground-dwelling creatures like slugs, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's a super rare surprise indoors, so consider yourself incredibly lucky if you spot one. But hey, it's totally fine if it never blooms too. And finally, Section 4. Troubleshooting pests and problems to keep those big leaves pristine. Because these leaves are literally thick and leathery, it's highly resistant to most pests. They just can't bite through. But if the plant gets super stressed, you might see one of these 3 culprits. Keep an eye out for mealybugs. They look like little white cottony tufts down at the base. Scale insects look like hard brown bumps stuck to the leaves. And spider mites, which are super rare, can pop up if your house is extremely dry and dusty. If you do see any of these, don't panic. Just wipe them right off with a cotton swab dipped in rubbing alcohol, or use a mild insecticidal soap. Speaking of dust, here is a massive pro tip for you: dust your plant. Because the leaves are so large and dark, they're basically dust magnets. You should absolutely wipe them down with a damp cloth a few times a year. Not only does this keep them looking incredibly glossy and gorgeous, but removing that dust is actually critical for the plant's health. It's like wiping off a solar panel. It helps the plant photosynthesize and absorb what little ambient light it actually gets in those dark corners. So to wrap up our complete care guide explainer today, let's do a quick recap. It's 100% non-toxic, so your cats and dogs are totally safe. You can basically put down the pruning shears. You only ever need to snip off an old yellowed leaf at the soil line if it's bothering you visually. And yes, the growth rate is very slow, which just means less repotting and less work for you. It really is an absolute powerhouse for spaces where literally any other plant would perish. With its wild Victorian legacy of surviving the harshest indoor conditions by thriving on pure neglect, it's pretty easy to see why the cast iron plant remains such a beloved classic. So thinking about your own space right now, do you have a dark, empty corner that is just begging for a touch of life? You now have the exact blueprint to keep a cast iron plant thriving there for decades to come. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy planting!